Tay, or West Lake, in Hanoi is another site closely associated with the legends of Cao Biên. Today, West Lake is a bustling area known for its scenic views, cultural sites, and vibrant atmosphere. Pagodas like Tran Quoc Pagoda, one of the oldest in Vietnam, are still revered spiritual centers where people come to pray, make offerings, and find a sense of peace amidst the urban hustle of Hanoi. These pagodas represent continuity, standing as resilient symbols of the spiritual heritage that Cao Biên is said to have attempted to suppress. The stories of Cao Bien's efforts to subdue Ho Tay's spiritual energy add a mystical layer to the lake, transforming it from merely a beautiful body of water into a cultural landmark with deep historical and spiritual significance. Today, it attracts not only those interested in the spiritual energy it represents, but also tourists eager to understand Vietnam's cultural history. This blend of spiritual reverence and modern tourism shows how Vietnamese people have maintained their connection to traditional beliefs while integrating them into a contemporary lifestyle. Modern perspectives on Cao Bien's actions. In the eyes of modern Vietnamese society, Cao Biên represents a complex figure, both a historical person and a symbol of foreign interference in Vietnam's cultural and spiritual sovereignty. His actions are often interpreted as a metaphor for attempts by outside forces to suppress the intrinsic power of the Vietnamese people and their land. The fact that he is said to have failed in suppressing the dragon veins is celebrated as a testament to the resilience of the Vietnamese spirit. Modern interpretations of Cao Bien's story also reflect a changing perspective on feng shui and spiritual energy. As urbanization and scientific advancement become more prominent, the literal belief in dragon veins and Cao Bien's rituals has evolved. For many people, these stories now symbolize cultural pride rather than literal spiritual warfare. They represent a cultural identity deeply intertwined with the land, one that could not be severed by any force. Spiritual tourism and cultural identity. The sites associated with Cao Bien's rituals have also gained prominence as attractions for spiritual tourism. People visit these places not just for worship, but also to learn about Vietnamese heritage, experiencing the blend of myth and history firsthand. The dragon veins, which Cao Biên supposedly sought to sever, have become symbolic markers of Vietnam's spiritual resilience. This form of tourism allows people to appreciate Vietnam's rich history while supporting local economies, making these sites relevant in a modern, globalized context. Today, the belief in feng shui and dragon veins persists, but has been adapted to fit into a contemporary framework. Instead of being seen purely through the lens of superstition, they are appreciated as important aspects of cultural heritage, symbols of a deep connection between people and the land they inhabit. Whether through prayer, tourism, or simply by learning the old legends, modern Vietnamese continue to honor the spirit of the land, affirming that their cultural and spiritual strength cannot be easily broken, just as it could not be in Cao Bien's time. The concept of dragon veins holds a significant place in Vietnamese cultural consciousness, playing a crucial role in the safeguarding of the nation and in the formation of a collective identity. These veins, mystical lines of geomantic energy believed to connect and nourish the landscape, are thought to be the sources of strength and prosperity for the country. For centuries, the idea of protecting these dragon veins has woven together spiritual beliefs, national pride, and an enduring sense of community, profoundly impacting the psychological and cultural outlook of the Vietnamese people. Dragon veins as guardians of the nation. Dragon veins are an essential part of the Vietnamese understanding of the natural landscape, symbolizing lines of energy that flow beneath mountains, rivers, and valleys, bringing vitality to the land and its people. In Vietnamese folklore, the country's well-being is intrinsically tied to the uninterrupted flow of these veins. They are believed to not only safeguard the nation's physical and material prosperity, but also its spiritual integrity, ensuring that the land remains strong and the people united. During times of turmoil, the idea of dragon veins took on added significance. During periods of foreign invasion, such as the centuries of Chinese domination, many Vietnamese believed that their nation's spirit was under attack, both physically and spiritually. The stories of Cao Biên attempting to sever these veins are symbolic of foreign attempts to weaken Vietnam's inner strength and subdue its people. In contrast, the protection and preservation of dragon veins became an act of cultural resistance, a way of maintaining sovereignty and ensuring the nation's continued survival. spiritual protection, and its psychological impact. Protecting the dragon veins was not only a physical endeavor, but also a profoundly spiritual one. Local communities, monks, and geomancers took it upon themselves to maintain the energy of important spiritual sites, viewing them as the guardians of the country. Temples, pagodas, and shrines were built near these locations, and rituals were performed to protect and nourish the flow of energy. The collective effort to preserve these sacred sites fostered a sense of community, binding the people together in a shared mission to safeguard the nation's spiritual heritage. This spiritual effort had a deep psychological impact on the Vietnamese people. In times of hardship, the belief in dragon veins and their protective power offered a source of hope and resilience. The idea that the nation was protected by unseen forces, that there were powerful energies flowing beneath the land that could not be severed, helped sustain the Vietnamese spirit through invasions, colonial domination, and conflicts. It provided a sense of empowerment, suggesting that even when facing overwhelming odds, the strength of the land itself was on their side. The rituals and ceremonies performed to protect dragon veins were also a form of psychological affirmation, a reminder that the Vietnamese people had the ability to influence their own fate by remaining connected to the natural and spiritual world. The physical acts of gathering at sacred sites, offering prayers, and engaging in communal rituals reinforced the notion of unity, resilience, and the importance of a shared cultural identity. It affirmed that as long as the dragon veins remained intact, so too would the spirit of the nation, building collective identity through dragon veins. The concept of dragon veins also played a key role in building collective identity. It represented a common spiritual geography that all Vietnamese people, regardless of regional differences, could identify with. The dragon veins were seen as the connective tissue of the nation, physically and spiritually linking different regions together and creating a shared sense of belonging. This collective identity was particularly important in a country that has faced numerous invasions and struggles for independence throughout its history. The protection of dragon veins became a symbol of the people's unwavering commitment to their land. Legends of local heroes, geomancers, and monks who worked tirelessly to defend these energy lines from Cao Bien's attempts at severance reflect the idea of unity against a common threat. These stories celebrate the resilience of the people, suggesting that as long as they remained committed to protecting their spiritual heritage, they could resist any force, no matter how powerful. The image of dragon veins as a lifeline for the country also created a sense of duty among the people. It fostered the belief that safeguarding these veins was not just the responsibility of a select few, but a collective effort involving the entire community. Each individual had a role to play in maintaining the vitality of the land, whether through respecting sacred sites, participating in rituals, or simply nurturing their connection to the natural world. Modern interpretations and continued relevance in modern times. While the literal belief in dragon veins has evolved, the symbolism of these energy lines continues to be an important part of Vietnamese culture. The idea of safeguarding the nation's spiritual heritage remains relevant, albeit in different forms. Today, it might manifest through environmental conservation, cultural preservation, and the protection of sacred sites that are now recognized for both their historical and spiritual value. The psychological impact of dragon veins endures in the collective consciousness as a reminder of resilience and cultural pride. It represents an understanding that the strength of a people is rooted not just in their physical capabilities, but also in their deep connection to their environment and their shared spiritual beliefs. The legacy of protecting dragon veins is a testament to the Vietnamese spirit, its ability to endure and flourish despite adversity. In summary, the role of dragon veins in Vietnamese culture goes far beyond their mystical associations. They have acted as guardians of the nation, providing spiritual protection and fostering a sense of collective identity and unity. By safeguarding these veins, the Vietnamese people have not only preserved their cultural heritage, but also reaffirmed their connection to the land, drawing strength from it through centuries of hardship. Today, the legacy of dragon veins continues to inspire pride, resilience, and an enduring belief in the importance of cultural and spiritual sovereignty. Culture in Vietnam throughout history, from Cao Bien's era to the present day, the spirit of independence and the commitment to protecting traditional culture have been defining characteristics of the Vietnamese people throughout history, from the time of Cao Biền to the present day. These qualities have shaped Vietnam's resilience against foreign domination and its dedication to preserving its cultural identity. The efforts to maintain spiritual, cultural, and national sovereignty have woven together a rich narrative of heroism, cultural pride, and unyielding determination. Resistance in Cao Bien's era, the birth of cultural defense. During the 9th century, Cao Biên was sent by the Tang dynasty to govern the Vietnamese region, then known as Annam. While Cao Bien's official mission was to secure the Tang Empire's control over the territory, Vietnamese folklore adds a deeper layer to this historical period. Cao Biên is remembered not only as an administrator but also as a figure who attempted to suppress the spiritual energy of the land by severing the dragon veins, energy lines believed to provide strength and prosperity to the nation. In response, the local communities showed a profound spirit of resistance. Though their efforts against Cao Biên may not have been in the form of direct military conflict, they resisted by preserving their sacred sites, maintaining traditional beliefs, and nurturing the spiritual energies that they believed sustained their land. The legends of local heroes and spiritual leaders opposing Cao Bien's efforts symbolize the early seeds of Vietnamese cultural defense. Even under foreign rule, the people's commitment to their land and traditions laid the foundation for a long history of resistance against outside influence. No Nguyen and the first steps toward independence. The spirit of independence found its most significant expression in the 10th century, when No Nguyen led the Vietnamese to victory against the Southern Han at the Battle of Bac Dang River in 938. This marked the end of over a millennium of Chinese domination and the beginning of a new era of Vietnamese sovereignty. No Nguyen's triumph was not just a military victory, it was a profound statement of the people's will to reclaim their autonomy and protect their cultural identity. No Nguyen's victory also inspired future generations to value independence and to see themselves as protectors of their cultural heritage. It laid the foundation for a succession of independent Vietnamese dynasties that would continue to resist foreign interference and reinforce traditional cultural values. The spirit of No Nguyen's era became a beacon of resilience that continued to guide the nation through future struggles. The Lai and Tran dynasties, cultural flourishing and defense. Following the establishment of independence, the Lai and Tran dynasties, 11th to 14th centuries, became golden periods for Vietnamese culture, marked by the flourishing of Buddhism, the construction of temples and pagodas, and the preservation of traditional values. During this time, the Vietnamese people cultivated their own unique cultural identity, distinct from their powerful neighbors. The construction of significant cultural and spiritual landmarks, such as the One Pillar Pagoda and Perfume Pagoda, symbolized the connection between the people and their spiritual heritage. These dynasties also faced repeated Mongol invasions, which were successfully repelled through the leadership of Tran Hun Dao and the collective will of the people. The victories over the Mongols were not just military triumphs, but also efforts to defend the cultural and spiritual identity of the nation. The Vietnamese continued to see their land as sacred, and their efforts to protect it were fueled by a deep belief in their right to maintain their own way of life, free from foreign control. The later Le dynasty, reasserting sovereignty. During the 15th century, the Ming dynasty of China attempted to reassert control over Vietnam, leading to another period of occupation. In response, Lü Loi led a successful rebellion that culminated in the establishment of the later Le dynasty. Lü Loi's campaign was steeped in the ideals of national unity and independence, once again highlighting the Vietnamese determination to safeguard their sovereignty and traditional culture. The movement was fueled by the belief that the land and its people were inseparable, and that any attempt to dominate Vietnam was an affront not only to its political autonomy, but also to its cultural and spiritual values. The Lü Code, a comprehensive legal code developed during this period, reinforced Vietnamese cultural norms, emphasizing moral conduct, family values, and respect for traditions. By codifying these values into law, the later Le dynasty ensured that Vietnamese cultural identity remained intact despite external threats. The Nguyen dynasty and colonial resistance. The Nguyen dynasty, 1802 to 1945, faced the growing influence of European colonial powers, particularly France. By the mid-19th century, Vietnam had become a French protectorate, leading to a period of intense cultural suppression. Despite efforts by the colonial authorities to introduce Western customs and undermine traditional practices, the spirit of resistance endured. During this period, intellectuals and revolutionaries like Phan Boi Chau, Phan Chau Trinh, and Ho Chi Minh emerged, advocating for both political independence and the preservation of traditional Vietnamese culture. The resistance to colonial rule was not just a fight for political freedom, but also an effort to protect the language, customs, and beliefs that defined Vietnamese identity. The establishment of patriotic societies, underground schools, and cultural preservation movements all played a part in ensuring that the Vietnamese spirit remained alive during these challenging times. Modern era, cultural revival and global integration. Following the end of colonial rule and the struggle for national reunification, Vietnam emerged as an independent nation once again. In the modern era, the efforts to protect traditional culture have taken on new forms. The government has made significant efforts to revive traditional festivals, preserve historical sites, and promote cultural education. Iconic celebrations such as Tết Nguyên đán, Lunar New Year, and Mid-Autumn Festival have regained their importance, serving as a reminder of Vietnam's rich cultural heritage. The modern perspective on cultural preservation also includes the recognition of intangible heritage, such as folk music, traditional theater, and spiritual practices. UNESCO recognition of cultural elements like Quan Ho singing, Ca Tru, and the worship of Hung Kings underscores the global acknowledgement of Vietnam's unique cultural contributions. The restoration of sacred sites linked to dragon veins, such as temples and mountains, reflects the continued belief in the spiritual power of the land and the importance of honoring traditional values. Today, Vietnam faces the dual challenge of integrating into the global economy while maintaining its cultural identity. Urbanization and modernization have brought rapid change, but the efforts to protect traditional culture remain steadfast. The younger generation is increasingly interested in reconnecting with their roots, learning about traditional practices, and finding ways to incorporate them into their contemporary lives. This balance between modernity and tradition reflects the resilience of the Vietnamese spirit, a spirit that has, throughout history, found strength in its deep connection to the land and its cultural heritage. Conclusion: from Cao Bien's era to the present day, the Vietnamese people have consistently demonstrated a profound commitment to independence and cultural preservation. Whether through resisting foreign attempts to sever the spiritual energy of their land, as in the time of Cao Biên, or through the military and cultural resistance against colonial and imperial forces, the Vietnamese spirit has remained unyielding. The protection of traditional culture, in both tangible and intangible forms, is a testament to the nation's enduring resilience. Today, as Vietnam navigates the complexities of modernity, the lessons of history continue to inspire a commitment to safeguarding the unique cultural identity that has defined the nation for centuries. Cao Bien's historical role in Vietnam offers a unique lens through which we can understand the enduring spirit of the Vietnamese people. Sent by the Tang dynasty to consolidate control over the territory, Cao Bien's actions, both as a military governor and in his attempts to sever the dragon veins, symbolized the broader effort to suppress not only the physical autonomy but also the spiritual vitality of Vietnam. His legacy in Vietnamese folklore reflects the people's profound attachment to their land and their belief in the deep spiritual forces that protect it. The Vietnamese response to Cao Bien's attempts at subjugation provides a powerful lesson on the strength of spirituality. By preserving sacred sites, maintaining rituals, and nurturing a sense of reverence for the natural and mystical elements of the land, the Vietnamese people demonstrated a remarkable ability to resist foreign efforts to undermine their culture. This commitment to spiritual defense helped sustain their identity and inspired a collective belief in the power of the unseen, an energy that no external force could break. Throughout history, the independent spirit of the Vietnamese people has been unwavering in the face of foreign suppression. From Ngo Nguyen's decisive victory at the Bac Dang River to the cultural defense against colonial and imperial domination, the Vietnamese have continually fought to reclaim and protect their sovereignty. The spirit of independence is not just about military victories, it encompasses the resilience of the people in preserving their cultural heritage, maintaining their beliefs, and safeguarding their land's spiritual essence. The story of Cao Bian, the dragon veins, and the efforts to protect Vietnam's spiritual identity remind us of the indomitable will of a people determined to remain true to themselves. This legacy of resistance, rooted in a profound connection to the land and its energies, continues to inspire the modern Vietnamese spirit, a spirit that remains resilient, proud, and deeply connected to its cultural roots. Even as the country evolves in a rapidly changing world, the Vietnamese response to Cao Bien's attempts at subjugation provides a powerful lesson on the strength of spirituality. By preserving sacred sites, maintaining rituals, and nurturing a sense of reverence for the natural and mystical elements of the land, the Vietnamese people demonstrated a remarkable ability to resist foreign efforts to undermine their culture. This commitment to spiritual defense helped sustain their identity and inspired a collective belief in the power of the unseen, an energy that no external force could break. Throughout history, the independent spirit of the Vietnamese people has been unwavering in the face of foreign suppression. From Ngo Nguyen's decisive victory at the Bac Dang River to the cultural defense against colonial and imperial domination, the Vietnamese have continually fought to reclaim and protect their sovereignty. The spirit of independence is not just about military victories, it encompasses the resilience of the people in preserving their cultural heritage, maintaining their beliefs, and safeguarding their land's spiritual essence. The story of Cao Bian, the dragon veins, and the efforts to protect Vietnam's spiritual identity remind us of the indomitable will of a people determined to remain true to themselves. This legacy of resistance, rooted in a profound connection to the land and its energies, continues to inspire the modern Vietnamese spirit, a spirit that remains resilient, proud, and deeply connected to its cultural roots. Even as the country evolves in a rapidly changing world, expressive and captivating, the story of Cao Bian and the dragon veins of Vietnam unveils a world shrouded in mysticism, historical tension, and the enduring spirit of national pride. Cao Bian, an eminent military general and geomancer during the Tang dynasty, was sent by China to control the burgeoning influence of the spiritual forces believed to reside in the lands of ancient Vietnam. The mission assigned to him was not merely political, it was a battle against the metaphysical, a profound endeavor to dominate the spirit of the land and suppress its resilience. Cao Bien's journey into Vietnam was marked by the search for the mysterious Long Moc, dragon veins, the vital lifelines believed to imbue the land with its spiritual energy and strength. The concept of the dragon veins in Vietnamese culture is an ancient belief that the earth's essence, flowing beneath mountains and rivers, gives rise to the vigor of the people and the prosperity of their lands. Cao Bian was tasked with identifying these powerful sites and using geomancy to suppress their energy, effectively severing the connection between the people and the protective spirits of their homeland. Armed with his mystical knowledge, Cao Bian set about his work, planting talismans and erecting pagodas in strategic locations, intending to manipulate and contain the sacred energies. His rituals were not only physical manifestations of control, but also a statement of cultural dominance, attempting to disrupt the intrinsic balance and essence that nourished Vietnamese identity. However, his efforts, though powerful, ultimately reflected an external misunderstanding of the deep-rooted bond between the Vietnamese people and their land. In the hearts of the Vietnamese, the idea of the dragon veins is much more than a mystical belief. It is a symbol of an indomitable spirit and a historical connection to their ancestors. Cao Bien's suppression was seen as an intrusion, a foreign attempt to weaken their national pride and autonomy. The struggle between Cao Bien's efforts and the enduring spirit of the Vietnamese people becomes a profound narrative of resistance, one where the land itself seemed to resonate with the people's longing for freedom. Despite his impressive skills, Cao Bien's suppression did not lead to the complete subjugation that the Tang dynasty had hoped for. The Vietnamese people's connection to their land and the protective forces of their ancestors remained unbroken. In fact, Cao Bien's actions only deepened the mystical reverence the Vietnamese held for their sacred geography, fostering a cultural unity rooted in resistance. His attempt to suppress the spiritual energy of Vietnam inadvertently heightened the awareness and pride the locals had in their heritage, transforming his conquest into a story of resilience rather than submission. the legend of Cao Biền and the dragon veins remains a fascinating chapter in Vietnamese history, an evocative tale of mystical forces intertwined with political power, where the resilience of the land and the unyielding spirit of its people defied attempts to suppress them. This story stands as a reminder of the spiritual strength that underpins national identity and pride, demonstrating how the cultural and historical essence of a people can endure even the grandest efforts to dominate it. It tells us that no matter how strong the force of suppression, the spirit that flows through the land and its people is untamable, a source of enduring inspiration and unity. To evoke the grandeur and mysticism of the story of Cao Biền and the dragon veins of Vietnam, a combination of classical and mystical music serves as an essential component in bringing the narrative to life. The historical tension between an imperial power-seeking domination and the enduring spiritual connection of a people to their land finds resonance in a carefully crafted musical atmosphere that elevates each moment of this tale. Classical music, with its orchestral depth and rhythmic precision, offers a fitting backdrop for the unfolding of historical events. Strings and woodwinds evoke the solemnity of Cao Bien's mission, while the slow, deliberate movement of deep strings such as cellos and basses captures the gravity of his attempts to locate and suppress the dragon veins. These classical motifs help underscore the calculated and strategic nature of Cao Bien's journey, creating an audible layer that mirrors his intentions to exert control over the land and its people. Overlaying this classical foundation, mystical music imbues the atmosphere with a sense of otherworldly presence. Traditional Vietnamese instruments like the dan tran, zither, and sao truc, bamboo flute, weave through the orchestral landscape, their haunting melodies carrying the whispers of ancient spirits. The ethereal notes of the dan bao, monochord, bring forth an almost mournful resonance, echoing the deep spiritual energy that Cao Biền sought to suppress but could never fully extinguish. This combination helps to convey the delicate balance between the human realm and the metaphysical forces that permeate the landscape. Percussion instruments such as gongs and ceremonial drums are strategically used to emphasize moments of ritual, bringing listeners into the sacred space where Cao Biền performed his geomantic rites. The rhythmic beating of the drums evokes a heartbeat that connects the listener to the earth, reminding them of the powerful currents flowing beneath the surface, the very essence of the dragon veins. These percussive elements serve not only to mark the rituals, but also to remind viewers of the resistance present in the land itself, a spirit that echoes in the beat of every drum. Mystical choral vocals, often wordless but deeply expressive, add another layer to the soundtrack, representing the voices of the land and its spirits. The blending of human voices with the orchestral and traditional instruments evokes an atmosphere of ancient reverence. These voices seem to rise from the very mountains and rivers, resonating with the collective memory of the Vietnamese people and their connection to the land. The ethereal choral elements add a haunting beauty to the scenes, emphasizing the idea that while Cao Bien's mission was backed by imperial power, it was ultimately dwarfed by the deeper, timeless connection between the people and their homeland. Through this blend of classical and mystical music, the soundtrack not only underscores the historical narrative but also elevates the spiritual essence of the story. It creates an immersive experience that allows viewers to feel the clash between imperial ambition and the spirit of the land. To understand the profound significance of the dragon veins, and to feel the pulse of resistance that has always run through Vietnam's history, the music heightens both the tension of Cao Bien's mission and the mystic resonance of the landscape, providing a window into a world where the fate of a nation is intertwined with forces far beyond mere human control.